And then we are gonna get to myself and Sarah and Joanna, so talk about mega camp stuff. And while they're coming up, I just want to share. It was amazing. At least I think it was. Of course, I think most things are amazing. There's so much information. So we're gonna go over just some of the highlights today. We have several QR codes to get your phones out for a lot of links to a lot of other one pagers and information. So have that ready as well. You guys can come in if you want to. Jay, you need a seat? Okay. Anyway, so yeah, so I'm gonna start sharing stuff on Facebook as we kind of keep going through this because there's just a lot. Thank you, ladies. Over here know Joanna and Sarah. Hello, hello. So we're gonna keep it pretty simple. What did you have fun? We did have fun.
A lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
It's always fun.
It's always fun. Yeah, I think Joanna and I did not see each other at all.
No, I tried to pick up with you, but somehow it didn't work out. We all both were so busy.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful.
Yeah.
We can hang out here.
Exactly.
There to network with other people, so.
Yeah, that's the part that I think people forget is they go and ended up hanging out with people and you just do it as human nature with the people that you know. And it's nice to meet a lot of people that you don't know. So that's really about the masterminds make that possible. Who would like to go first? The first question I asked was what were your highlights? Or we can go.
I can go first. So my biggest highlight was to see this lady on stage. She was amazing. They were the second panel on starting the first day of Mega Camp. And she was great. I'm not gonna talk about what she talked about. I'm sure she's gonna touch on that. But it was quite amazing. The other thing that, so I have been to many family reunions and many mega camps, and every single one of those is about something different for me. It kind of evolves that way. So this time, mega camp was about having a friend there who is looking into joining Keller Williams and seeing the company through her eyes again. I've been with the company since I don't remember. Maybe I don't really remember, maybe 2011 or 12. Anyway, so I'm used to what we have here within the company, and I'm used to all the culture. I'm used to all of the education we get. I'm used to all of the resources that we get and the people, and it's just an amazing company. So I kind of take it as a given. And she's amazing. She's top notch, she's number one. She's in Florida. So we met in Florida. She's a friend from Florida, and we just became friends over the past 3 years. And she works for a small broker there. She basically owns one street, and she is at the top of her real estate board. Okay. So she does amazing things out of her own with that little broker that does nothing but just throws obstacles at her and is zero help to her. And I have been trying to, explain to her, listen, there is so much more opportunity for you. You can, even if you don't do more transactions, you can make your life easier by all kinds of leverage. And so I was finally very super excited when she decides to come and, and experience family mega camp and just see it through her eyes and how in awe she was and how she was discovering what she didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. And that's why you go there. You see other people do things that you don't even think about, or that you don't think are possible, and it just completely changes your life. So for me, that mega camp, of course, I brought a lot of things for I learned a lot of things for myself, but it was mainly about seeing her just literally be in awe with what we do.
That's awesome. How about you?
I think the biggest opportunity that you get whenever you go to events like this is, yes, hearing from speakers and people on stage, but it's the little small conversations that you get to have with agents outside of the event, where you end up picking up little tiny things that can make a big difference in your business. For example, I was sharing with another agent a frustration that I have in my business. I work with a lot of buyers dealing with inspection reports, right? So, you have an inspection, you get the inspection report and the buyer wants to talk about that inspection report that day, right? And for me, that's stressful because if they're doing the inspection report, I don't want to be on the phone at 7:30 at night talking about an inspection report when it can wait until the next day, but yet it's important to them. And so she told me, this agent works with a lot of buyers, and she was like, I only do inspections Monday through Wednesday before 12 o'clock. That way, I know that I'm gonna get the report around lunchtime. I'll have an opportunity to review it early that afternoon, and I can schedule that phone call and set the expectation with the buyer. And that way it's like off of her plate by the time, she has an evening at home. And for me, that was like, oh, okay, now, there's some times where that's not always gonna work out because, time is of the essence sometimes and you're trying to quickly do things. But now that we're getting a little bit more flexibility back in our schedules as real estate agents and the market's not moving so super fast, you can control what you can control. And for me, that was a big little nugget that I took away that I'm gonna come back and implement in my business that would, for me, make things flow a lot better. We had a great opportunity to hear Phil Jones speak. And so he's the author of the book, Exactly What to Say. And he's been doing a lot of stuff with KW recently. Thankfully, they filmed his speech and it's on YouTube. So I think we have a QR code where you can go and download that. But one of the big things that he reiterated, and there's another keynote speaker that we had, Rory Vaden, and they both talked about how you. Yes, that's it. That's the one. So they both reiterated. Just let us be. That you have to find the problem that you solve for your clients. And you have to really, really know who your client is and what problems do you solve for them. And so oftentimes as agents, we think that our ideal client is anyone that wants to buy or sell a house, right? I had that thought as well. It's like, oh, I'm willing to help everybody. If you approach your marketing from that standpoint, if you're the agent for everybody, then you're the agent for nobody. And so you can, he used this term, maybe this is what he said. He's got a great accent. If you shoot with specialism, it's easier to hit generalism. And so what that means is that, let's say that you determine that your ideal client, the person that you have the most fun working with, is a senior who is downsizing and is looking to sell their house and move into something a little bit smaller. All of your marketing and all of your messaging should be around helping that client. And so you might have the limiting belief of, oh, well, if I'm only talking about that, then my first time home buyer friend is not going to reach out to me to help them, or I'm not going to get a referral for, somebody that wants to buy a condo. And that's not the case. By you specializing in something, it makes it easier to also pick up those other types of businesses, but you're going to appeal to a much broader audience by going small. And so he advised that you should find, and he talks about this in the speech that y'all can watch on YouTube, but you should identify the 3 groups of people that you help and the 3 problems that you solve. So, each of those different core groups of people. So it's essentially like building your lead gen levers or, your 3 ideal clients and really getting crystal clear around that. And I think it's really easy to make marketing decisions or business decisions when we have a very, very clear idea of what our goal is. It makes it really easy to ignore a lot of other stuff and know what to say no to. Because in the absence of having that clarity, everything sounds like a great idea. And so you're going to get all kinds of really great one-pagers from people that are doing all kinds of amazing things. And it's going to be really easy to get distracted with all of these great ideas. But if those great ideas aren't solving the problem or helping you reach your 3 groups of people, you can ignore everything else and just find those ones that make the most sense for your people.
Awesome. So lots of takeaways, including all of that, and wearing a different hat, as you guys, as leaders in your industry and as leadership in this office. I kind of took to Gary's theme on day 1 at the CS Summit was about toughness, talking about toughness. Some of the quotes that I wrote down is tough times don't last, but tough people do. As we're going through some of these changes, that there's 4 qualities of tough people. One is flexibility, number 2 is responsiveness, number 3 is strength, and number 4 is resiliency. And so if you think about, you know, being tough, toughness applies to physical, emotional, spiritual, all the things. You have toughness around all of that. And how are you protecting yourself and building up your toughness in those areas? You talked about kind of if you don't use it, you lose it. And think about, use an example of when you go to work out, you know, if you don't work out for a while and try to go lift 100 pounds or, you know, not all of us, but you know, it's not going to feel good the next day. So just talk about stuff like that. The big theme, what Sarah kind of touched on, is really being intentional and honing into your lane, whatever lane that is, and getting clear on who you're serving, because you can't serve everybody at a high level. It's just not physically possible. I don't know anybody that was on stage that's serving everybody. They all have their lane that they've mastered at a super high level. So I think that was a good takeaway, especially for a lot of new agents, because everybody wants to try everything and there's all these new shiny toys out there that you're like, oh, this looks good, that looks good. Just don't try them all. You're gonna be exhausted and get burnt out really quickly.
I don't know who said this, I wrote this down, but it's win the play, win the game. And so oftentimes we focus on contracts or closings, but really what I kind of reminded myself about this is it's what we already know, right? It's like what you do day in and day out. And are you being consistently with winning what you're doing every single day, knowing that if you win every day, you're going to win the game in the long run. But we can't focus on those outcomes. We have to focus on, are we executing every single day on what we're supposed to do? Putting in the work, doing the repetitions. One thing that I'm feeling in my business a little bit right now is that it's taken a lot more work right now to win the game. You know, every day is a little bit harder. It's, you know, having to work on a lot more to get the same. And I think that was the theme that was kind of reiterated by a lot of agents there, is that it is a little bit tougher right now. But agents are out there selling houses. Are you going to be one of them? Or are you not going to be one of them? And it just that's determined by how hard you're willing to work every single day, and just stay focused on what you can do and what you can control throughout the day.
Yes, and they also introduced the concept of sprints and like winning the sprints, like life, you know, seeing life as a set of sprints. And, you know, so like, for example, in life, the sprints would be you're in your infant years, then you're in your toddler years, then you're in your youth, and you know, and as life goes on, each period of time is your sprint. Then you can also look at it as time sprints. For example, you've got it, every week is a sprint, every month is a sprint, every day is a sprint, every year is a sprint, and you just focus on winning that one sprint, or you put into your energy into that one sprint. And so, for example, for real estate, what your sprints would be for real estate, your buyer leads, your sellers, your listings, your leverage, those are your real estate sprints. So stay focused and, you know, focus on identify what your sprints are and just put your energy into winning that one sprint. Once you win it, then you can take a break, you know, take a breather, take it a little easy and focus what the next sprint is for me. And they tie that into like, if you want to win the daily sprints, which are the most important things for us, they say, then you want to win the morning sprint. You know, the morning sprint, if you win your morning, you win your day. So focus and put all of the most important things that you need to do in that day into your morning. The first 6 to 8 hours that you wake up are the most important hours in your day. That's where you have the most focus, you're most rested, and you're most efficient, according to all of the research and study ever done in the world. So if you schedule your day that way, where all of those tasks or the sprints that for that day are done in that morning hours, then you win the day, and then you win the next day, and then you win the following day, you know. And it's just like, that's how you win in your life, that's how you win in your business. And also the idea of morning for people who are not morning people is, Gary said, the morning is whenever you wake up. It's like, you know, for people in music business, their morning is at 2 p.m. in the afternoon, right? Because that's when they wake up after all the concerts. So the first 6 to 7 hours after you wake up are are the most important hours, in your day. So if you can focus on winning that, then you will go to bigger wins over time.
Another author or another speaker that was there is a guy named Jason Dorsey. He was at the CEO Summit. I don't know if anybody knows who he is. If you don't, I would look him up. He talks about understanding generational relationships, the Gen Z, the Gen X, the millennials, and the baby boomers. And he went through a whole series of examples. Because as a leadership role, I have a whole group of people from all different generations and how you build a team around that. And for you all as agents, how are you doing business with a baby boomer? How are you doing business with a Gen X or a Gen Z? Those that only, everything they do is on their phone. We still have people that like a wet signature. I mean, how are you really understanding how to work for those people? It was a great series to go through. Just some examples really quickly, like a Gen Z, they mostly trust anything that's on social media. They have a different work style. It's not that they don't have work ethic. And I think for people that are in older generations have a hard time and get frustrated with the Gen Z people because it's not that, again, their work ethic is just different. One thing I thought was really funny was millennials having kids later, a Gen X, naturally skeptical, the most important generation to retain. Fun fact, Gen X's and millennials will always work with the Gen X based on age, if you look at the age brackets. Baby boomers, you know who they are? They're the people that can still count change. They're the people that have the they're the ones that can do math by hand on a piece of paper. How they define work ethic is how many hours you work in a week. And so working with people that are in that bracket and you're in your 20s or early 30s, like that feels different. The conversations are different. So really understanding how to work with all the generations. He did a really good series on that. So I highly recommend if you're struggling with somebody just on relating and having relatability, I think that was really important to listen to. Jason Dorsey.
At some point, they brought up the idea around buyers, agent fees, and what we're charging. And they said that there was a study done by Allstate where they introduced a plan to consumers where they would do a price comparison tool of their different fees that they charge of different types of plans that they offered, highlighting the cheapest plan. And of their consumers, only 10% chose the cheapest plan. And so the aha for me around that is a little bit more of our confidence around our pricing and the value that we bring to our clients. And that when given a choice, a menu of services, and you break down what that includes in those services, we think that consumers will always choose the cheapest thing, but we know that's not true, right? Because of cars and handbags and clothes and all kinds of things. And for me, that was a good reminder of not to have that limiting belief, because I, as a consumer, sometimes can be like, no, give me the cheapest option. And not everyone thinks that way.
I love the analogy that they use there because they said, raise your hand in the audience who likes expensive things. So everybody in the audience raised their hand. And then the next question was, well, why do you want to be the cheapest? Something to think about.
Yeah. I remember, it was Dominique when she was here doing a small group with us, and she said, she told a seller, whatever, she's like, well, I see that you're driving a Land Rover, and, you could have bought a Toyota, but you chose to buy the Land Rover. That tells me that you like nice things and you expect great service and you expect, your value to match the service for the price. And kind of relating that to a real estate transaction of, yes, there's cheaper people out there, but you want a really great experience and you want a nice experience.
Yes, and then to tie into that, there was a panel there that one of the speakers was talking about how she does her buyer consultation. And then at the end, towards the end of the conversation, she discusses the compensation. So she will say, they will go through, first they're gonna go through what the market is doing, then what the buyer's looking for, the buyer's motivation, and then she asks, so Mr. Buyer, do you know how I get paid for the how much I get paid and how I get paid for the services that I provide to you. And, then she lets the buyer speak and, if the buyer has, and then she fills in the blanks basically to what the buyer's knowledge is. So she will say, so there are a few ways that I can get paid in the transaction. The first way is gonna be the seller will cover all of my compensation. The second one, the seller will cover a portion of it, and then you will cover the remainder of my fee. The other option is for you to cover the entire fee, and we can also have the fee included into the purchase price. So then she covered that. And then which one of those options would you like to choose? Or which ones of those options are good for you? And then on the seller end, I thought that was I haven't heard it before. I thought it was a really good way to present it is when you discuss the compensation with the seller, you have the seller net sheet that you present to the seller during the listing presentation. And one of the items on the seller net sheet is buyer compensation. And you put the buyer you either put it there or you discuss it with the seller. And then the buyer compensate, if the seller, brings up objections against that, then you can, one of the ways to present it to the seller is, well, Mr. Seller, if you decide to remove that buyer compensation from there, then you really are removing all of the power that you have to help the buyer in the transaction, because the buyer fees are much more higher than the seller fees when dealing with real estate, and many buyers do not have the money to pay for their agent. So they will look for properties that offer that compensation. And that really is, once you offer that compensation, that really is not a tool that really is not for the agent, is a tool for you to help the buyer. So they present it as, what were the exact words? They present it as a tool that helps the buyer in the transaction. So I thought that was a really nice way to say it to the seller. And then,
They refer to it as marketing tool.
marketing tool, there you go, perfect, thank you. And then they were talking about the seller side and seller concessions, how to prepare seller for concessions. So that was one of the things. And then how to prepare seller for, since we are in a market that's changing, everybody would agree with that. And we see a lot of price reductions in the market. So how do you prepare sellers for the price reductions? So you do it at the kitchen table when you do the listing presentation. And once you have gone through everything and you have chosen the price, then you say, so Mr. Seller, once we go on the market, one of the three things will happen. We will go on the market, we will have a lot of showings, we will have a lot of good offers, and three things will happen in the next 2 to 3 weeks. We will go on the market, we will have a lot of showings, we will have a lot of offers, and we will get your home under contract for the best price possible very quickly. That means we have done everything correctly, all of the marketing was done correctly, we priced the home correctly. And thing number 2 that may happen is we're gonna go through on the market for the first 2 to 3 weeks. We will have some showings. We will maybe have a 1 week offer or 2 week offers. And that will mean that we have priced the property probably 2 to 3% below the market value. So we will need to adjust. And then thing number 3 may happen where we are gonna go to the market and we will have maybe 1 to 2 showings, maybe no showings and no offers in the first 2 to 3 weeks. And that means that our property is priced about 5 to 7% above the market value. So we will watch that very carefully, and then we will make the adjustments as we go. And that way you kind of set their expectations as to, how many showings are we going to have? What do you expect? What is the market doing? What's normal in the market? You kind of set the expectation for that. And then when you need to go and do the price reduction, you say, okay, Mr. Seller, so we are about 3 weeks into the transaction. We have had this amount of traffic, this amount of showings, and and we don't have any good offer that we would receive from the buyer. So it's time for us to make the move and adjust the price. The market is telling us that it's time for us to adjust the price. The good news is the marketing is working because we're getting all of the views online. We're getting people interested in the home, but we are not getting a good offer, so that means we are overpriced. And once we change the price, once they do the price reduction, they also inform the seller that we will, once we reduce the price, we will relaunch the marketing, we will open up the property to a whole new pool of buyers, and everything will be revitalized for the listing. So you kind of need to talk to them about that upfront.
I think one of the good things about that is the agent sharing this said that she leads with great news. Our marketing is working.
That's what I underlined in my notes. It says, great news, our marketing is working. Yeah.
And she said that the importance of that is that you're immediately taking away the seller's ability to say or place blame on you as the agent. So you can get that data from looking at Zillow saves, Zillow views. You can get that from list reports. It shows you, views on other websites as well. So I think it's really important to start keeping track of that and lead with that in your feedback or your updates to sellers every single week, so that when you have to have that price conversation, you've taken away so they can't put it back on you or you're not doing enough as an agent. And then transition into, what the market is telling us based on lack of activity.
So it's not like it's my opinion and my professional opinion, it's like this is what.
And you never tell the price. You always let the buyer choose the price based on the comparables. Because if you tell them the price, then it's all on you. So you need to present the comparables and lead them a conversation to where they choose the proper market value. And then if it's not, then you definitely need to have the pricing conversation with them. And
Can I add really quick to that? That same conversation was, they actually do the pre-appointment packages, is that what you're gonna
Yes.
talk about? So they send out a pre-appointment package that includes comps from homes in the area, so the consumer is already understanding what homes are going for before they ever go and have their strategy session or a listing presentation, whatever it looks like. They already know what everybody around them is already doing and have sold for and what's going on.
I think one thing they also shared that was a nugget for me is that in that conversation with a seller to prepare their home for the market, especially depending on the age of the seller, of explaining that today's buyer is not the same as whenever you bought your home. Oftentimes you'll say, well, I had to come in and, renovate my house or paint or do little cosmetic fixes, and that's just the expectation. And I knew that going into buying a house. Well, today's buyer is not the same. They want an experience where, for the most part, they're walking into a home where they're not having to pick up a paintbrush and do those types of things. So framing your conversation around that of, yeah, you were an awesome buyer whenever you bought, but today's market sucks and these buyers aren't the same. But to prepare them for that.
And then to just switch on the same topic, but from a different perspective, different angle. There was a lady there, her name was, I don't remember. Stacy, yes, and she, the Value Up
Yes.
lady?
Yeah.
So she came up with a plan or a strategy that she called Value Up. So she helps people, her whole offer, her, offer to her audience, to her target market is, how I can help you get more money for your home. How do you get more money for your home, right? So she will go and she will do a consultation with her prospective clients on what can they improve in their home so that the home actually increases in value. What are the improvements that they can do to present their home or that will add value to their home in the current market. So she will go and do the consultation. She will go like room by room and discuss the home inside, discuss the home outside. And then she will explain to the owners what the target market is for that particular property. She will explain to them why the improvements that she is recommending are important to do. And she will discuss the current buyer, what the current buyer is expecting in their market. And then she also has a list of course, a list of vendors and people who, if the owners would like to take advantage of, she can recommend those people to them. And by doing that, of course, she's netting her clients more money on the sale, the homes sell faster, but she also is building a great database of people who will sell in the future, because not every, she offers it basically across the, across the board through all of her database. That's her main value, that's her main message, and then to whoever else she markets to. So she will do it even for people who are not thinking, like even if you're not thinking of selling the home right now and you have questions about how to improve the value of your home, I will help you with that. So that way she's building a pipeline of people,
Does she charge like a consultation? I'm sorry.
She did not mention that, but I don't think so. I don't think so.
She kind of led, she led with the line of, everyone should love the house they are living in.
Mhm.
And, prior to getting into real estate, we owned 2 houses, and every single time before we went to sell it, we would fix it up or do those projects that you put off that you know that was gonna make a difference. And every single time I was like, dang it, why am I doing this for someone else to enjoy? Like, why didn't I do this when we lived in the house and we could have enjoyed the way that this looks? So that resonated with me, and I'm sure, maybe a lot of would-be sellers in the future kind of feel that same way, that if they had someone to push and guide them to make those changes now, they can enjoy living in it for the next couple of years until they get ready to sell.
And she said, stop selling and start educating. So that's, she's educating those folks. And then there was another, you asked who the favorite panel was. For me, it was actually an interview with one person that Gary Keller did. So they had panels and then they had like one person interviewed. It was a solo agent. It was his name was Jay Robinson, from Chattanooga, from Tennessee. He closed 200 million last year, and 90 million of that was from pocket listings. He was probably the driest, most reserved person, speaker in the whole family reunion. Gary Keller was like a social butterfly around him.
Mm-hmm.
And his concept was like, he is this matchmaker, right? He matches people with homes. And the way he does it is he identified 3 areas within Chattanooga that he wanted to work within. And he educated himself so much on the homes in that area. Like he knows pretty much every home in his, he didn't call it farm, but I call it like in his farm area. So he knows what the house looks like, what the flow is, what the price point is, who the owners are. He really makes an effort to know the people who own that own those homes. And then when he gets a buyer, he has all those homes in his mind. He says, Gary asked him, how do you do it? And he says, well, I pay attention to what's going on. So he has all those homes in mind. And then he's able to match the personality. He says, I match personalities with homes. So once he does his buyer consultation, he of course gets the buyer's motivation, their needs, and then he looks at the personality and he knows in his mind, okay, this person will be perfect for this home. And so during the consultation, the question that he asks the buyer is, so is there a home, other the criteria that you have given me, is there a home in the area that you have seen that you would like to buy? And if there is a home that the buyer identifies, oh my gosh, we were driving by this house, it's fantastic, it fits everything we would want, then he will go and he will either call the owner or he will knock on the door and he will say, he will introduce himself. He will say, sir, I have somebody that's very interested in your home, and would you like to sell it? And, if not, it's okay. I still wanted to reach out to you as a compliment, because it surely is a compliment when somebody wants to buy something that you already have. And so, he's able to a lot of times, turn those, sell those pocket listings, obviously. And he also said, you don't burn the bridge, you kind of keep these people, you make the contact, you stay top of mind with those people. And then, if the transaction doesn't work out today, it may work out, a year or 2 years later. So just from those 3 areas, and he says, he makes his 20 calls in the morning, he makes calls to his database and his past clients. And then he's got appointments in the afternoon, or if he doesn't have appointments, he takes a nap or he goes and plays golf. So he has a team, he has a staff, he called them a staff. He has a staff of, I think, 3 ladies that have worked for him for the past 20 years. He said no turnover. He pays them well. They take care of him, his clients, and he says it's just like, it's like a perfect business model that he has. So I thought that was very impressive that he's able to do it. He says he called it transactional art creating a transaction from the beginning. So he calls it like an art, you know, to create the transaction from like not having the listing, but being able to still find the right home for the buyer. And of course, a lot of those conversations turn into listings later on. Now everybody knows me in the area. And then the funniest thing he said, well, I want them to call me for the real estate transaction. I don't care for them to call me for their birthday parties. So-
That's funny. I
So
forgot
what I
about
take
that.
from that is that you should just go find pretty houses and then go door knock on them and say, hey, I have a buyer that loves your house.
Yeah.
You don't have a buyer, but you're gonna go find one after the fact. Someone's gonna love that house.
Yeah.
But I think about like having this room, we've had a buyer that says, oh my gosh, I want to buy that house on the corner. Amy Young, for example, there's a house in her neighborhood that I tell her all the time, if it ever goes up for sale, let me know because I want to buy it. But how many people do that?
I mean, $90 million worth of
That's
transactions.
what I'm saying. Like if you have a buyer and there isn't a house listed and you ask them, hey, is there a house that you drive by every day that you love? Have you knocked on that door? Just something to think about.
And sometimes, you know, and sometimes he calls and he will call them and he says, hey, I want it. And then he says, when he even calls his data, like his database and clients, and he will call them, and that's gonna be his script too. He will say, you know, I won't take a lot of your time when he makes his 20 calls. I won't take a lot of your time, you know, and you know what I'm calling for. But even if you don't want to sell, I just wanted to call you as a compliment because I've got somebody that would like to buy your house, and you know, surely it's a compliment when someone wants something that you have. So, and he says his calls are very short, and people, you know, his database, they already know him, they know they take his calls because they know it's not gonna be, you know,
Like a
yeah,
a
like a
sales
sales
call.
pitch, yeah.
Mhm, mhm. What was your favorite panel?
I really enjoyed hearing, there's a panel that spoke about MOFR, so make offers for immediate response. And so Stacy was one, that service that she provides where she comes in and gives them, you know, consultations on how to improve the value of their house. There was another company or another team that provides like short-term loans for homeowners to actually make those improvements, and they have kind of like a white glove experience where they have vendors and everything that take care of that. Both of those, sharing my experience, feels a little bit harder to execute on, at least for me, without having a little bit more knowledge in people. But one thing that someone said was that they offer MOFRs and they kind of use like a white label experience. So what they mean by that is that you have cash offers, right? And so you have a lot of different companies that will make cash offers on properties, but instead of calling it, oh, the cash offer, like
Open door.
Open Door, thank you, Open Door Homeward. Instead of calling it that, you label it and call it your program, but on the back end, you're partnering with them to execute on that and deliver it. And you know, like the buy before you sell program.
Mhm.
That's what Homeward offers, but you can label that as your, you know, offer that you're making to people. And on the back
Mark
end,
Spain did, or
yeah, what's that?
is that kind of like what
Yeah.
Mark Spain does, or?
Yeah, in a way,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I'm sure like some of those are his actual
Yeah.
money that he's putting up to possibly buy some homes, but a lot of them are, you know, 20 different investors that they're putting that through on the back end. So I guess it's just thinking more so about different creative ways of you can offer things to your clients, but you may be working through another company to deliver that experience or that solution, but you're marketing it as your own.
Mhm. And another really great way to use that is as a promo for, it's not with your existing clients, but also send it to brand new clients that you're marketing to, that if they are thinking that they can't sell their home because they need to sell it before they buy something else, you're solving a problem. Be specific, solve the problem. I mean, you know, just MOFR in an area, you know, does anybody here send MOFRs out from your database? Yes, no, no, missed opportunity.
So
Yeah.
all of these things that we talked about, there's one pagers that you can download. So there was 3 different, and they're broken out by the panels and the overarching topic of what that panel was about. So you can go and look a little bit deeper and
And you can also actually reach out to those agents that that have presented those. And I see a lot of them are doing like post mega camp, additional live deep, like Zoom calls and things like that. So if
Mhm.
you're really interested into anything there, just reach out to that agent because they most likely will do something additional.
Yeah, they all provided these. So every
Yeah,
panelist that was up there all provided a one pager on their model. And so that's what all these links go to. So yes, I won't put these on the Facebook group. So it was that one. So this one, the Byron Seller Agents Tool to Thrive. We'll start sharing these once a week as well. But there's tons of information on here that answer a lot of questions. It's a lot of like 1 and 2 minute videos about what's going on in the market, that sort of thing. And then you got the fill and then the market update slides. We put on the Facebook. We're gonna go over this next week for team meeting. This is Gary Keller's slides from the market. So, but if you guys want them to look at them ahead of time, we'll also put that on the Facebook page. Questions? I went by really fast. I'm like, look what time it is. Anybody any questions? Thoughts?
Sarah share some of her stuff that she talked about.
Well, I want to hear her behind the scenes, behind the curtain. Mhm. That was behind the curtain with Gary and everybody.
That was a neat experience. There's, the operation behind the scenes is like a lot larger than what you think. So, like behind the curtain in the stage, looks like a command control center. There's like 20 people back there on computers and there's monitors everywhere and they're doing something. And so,
Mr. Oz, the Oz back there.
yeah, so that was a neat experience. Gary wasn't actually on stage whenever, for the panel that I was on, it was moderated by Ken Posick, who has a big YouTube social media presence in Orlando, Florida. So he's the one that kind of led it. So we were waiting to go on stage and Gary and the team were coming off and so he stopped and said hello to us and we got a quick picture with him. So that was exciting. But nerve-wracking to ask him for a picture. I don't know. I was like, can you ask him for a picture all of a sudden? But he's very generous and very open to doing all those kind of things. The one thing on the panel, so I was there with 2 other agents that focused mainly on Instagram. Brandon was here yesterday and shared. The other guy, Kyle, that was on the panel with us, he also does YouTube and Instagram, but a lot of his business comes from Instagram. And behind the scenes, I'll just tell y'all, no one knows exactly why what we're doing works. It's just a whole lot of trial and error. And so, you know, Brandon's been going at his Instagram for a good solid year and he's just now starting to get actual business from it. And so I think that's a hard thing with social media is that people can present as if things are very successful, you know, because you've got lots of followers and you've got this and you're posting every day. But truly behind the scenes, like how many people are reaching out to you to go buy and sell a home because of that? And what I've learned from other people that are doing this at a high level is when you start asking them details of sometimes like exactly what changes did you make to get the outcome that you wanted? For a lot of them, it's really hard to articulate because they don't really know exactly why it's working. And I can say that from my own experience as well, is that it's just keep trying, keep trying, keep trying, keep seeing what other people are doing, keep making small, tiny changes. And eventually it's either gonna work or you're gonna say like, oh, this isn't for me, or this is not what I want to spend my time on. So not to discredit everyone that's doing this, but I just want to tell you, like, those private conversations behind the scenes is like, it's not as easy, but it's also not as difficult as what it seems. Does that make sense?
And what I found interesting is like when they started mentioning the AI and what that can do with, you know, like if the use of AI in YouTube videos and social media and all of that, and how that can learn the patterns. I don't even know what I'm talking about, but how it can actually take what you're doing and then just, you know, learn it and then elevate it to another level. And what I'm envisioning probably will end up, you know, in a lot of more traffic for what it is and doing. And also there were some people that said that they fed their whole database into AI, and then the AI is transforming it and working on it and like telling them, okay, those are people that will most likely be sellers, you know, in the next 3 to 4 years. those are people that might buy a house soon, you know? I don't know how it's even done, but AI is definitely upon us. And if you're doing something online, you know, if you can integrate it somehow or like, I think that's gonna be like a booster for everything that's the YouTube video and Instagram people are doing.
Yeah, and I think for people, and Brandon made a good point yesterday about if you don't know what to put, just ask the chat
Exactly.
GPT.
What
I
are the
mean,
60
just,
most important questions to sellers? What are the 25 most important?
you can ask it
I mean,
anything and it will give you
the-
something.
yeah, They use it
Mhm.
to write the content and of course you need to personalize it as well, but you get at least, you know, the bone of it. So you can use this a lot to support yourself in what you're doing.
Yeah, I did, a lot of people in the room yesterday when Brandon went through and just did the copy and paste for all the restaurants on Google. Anybody in the room that was here yesterday? So what he did was he like pulled up the chat GPT, went to Google and said, you know, top 10 places, you know, best places to eat in Gainesville, Georgia. And he literally just went through and copied and pasted the whole list that came up and put it into chat GPT and said,
Just put the restaurant.
use the word please, ask it nicely. What do you say?
He said, just use the restaurant name and the location or the phone and the
Yeah.
type, you know, and then he said, put something at the front, yeah.
Restaurants
Make a
with the.
list, yeah, put emoji at the beginning of it, and it created the list for me, just copied it and pasted it.
It did it all laid out, and then he just
Yeah.
copy and pasted that and put that on his Instagram, and that was his post.
We
Like-
did that yesterday.
You did it?
How many people did that? Come on.
You did
I'm
it?
telling you guys, ChatGPT really works. It really works. I
Yeah.
use it very, 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 very often, every
Yeah.
day.
So
all
get the
day.
app, it works. If you're not sure what to post, it will tell you. Just put it in a thought or an idea and it will regurgitate something that sounds really cool and put a few smiley faces on there, you're good to go. I'm just saying. Put something out there, like the common thing was that Gary would say, all he said was, do the work.
Yeah, do
3
something.
words, do the work, just do the work. Yes.
So how does one compete in the world of YouTube? Say, with the topic of real estate, in today's world, if they're, say, haven't even put out their first video, it's like, you know, you've got 1,000 videos. You know, other people got thousands of videos. How do you compete in a world with yous and Eric's and whoever else the people are that are way up there and or down here?
Yeah, I would just say, you have to start.
Yes.
I mean, I remember the conversation of when I first started, I was telling someone and I was like, well, I only have like 6 videos out. And they're like, yeah, but by the end of the year, you're gonna have 52. And I was like, oh, you know, that consistency over time.
Right. Yep.
But when I first started, it was probably like one of just a handful. And now if you go look on YouTube, there's a lot of other agents doing it. There's plenty of business out there for everybody. So there's gonna be people that connect with me, there's gonna be people that will connect with you as an agent and will like the way that you present information. And so the great thing about that is that you're attracting people that are attracted to your style and you are not for everybody. And that's okay.
Right.
And yeah, and
So Brandon yesterday talked about being hyperlocal, you know, he's that suburb of Chicago. Where your videos are like Kennesaw, Ackworth, you know, they highlight different towns and all the best and the good stuff. But that's what you do. And with YouTube, you believe as well that hyperlocal is important when it's a topic like real estate, doing videos, best of, you know.
yeah, I mean, I would just say like make content for wherever you want to serve.
Mhm.
So, or
Right.
whatever you want to talk about. So whether that's Instagram or Facebook or, you know, whatever,
Mhm.
you can. Brandon chooses to go super hyper local because he only wants to drive 15 minutes.
Right.
I will drive 45 minutes to an hour for someone that wants to spend, you know, $900,000 on a home in Alpharetta. So,
Sure.
yeah, so it just depends on who your ideal client is or who you want to attract.
Now, I noticed you changed your channel name. Is that,
So moving to Georgia or, oh, Instagram?
no, you changed your YouTube channel name?
It's called Moving to Georgia. The thing with your, one thing that I've learned is that don't stress out about what you're calling your Instagram page or what you're calling your YouTube channel, because people are not searching for the name of your page.
Hmm.
So my videos are not showing up on YouTube because someone's searching for the Moving to Georgia page. They're just searching topics around that, you know, information about Alpharetta. And then you're getting a list of videos that relate to that. No one's ever going directly to your page first and then watching a video. That's not how you're gonna get the clients. You're getting the client just from them generally searching.
Okay.
Same thing with like Instagram. That's how you're attracting those people that you don't know, is because your information is just coming across their feed and they're saying, oh, let me click on that, but they didn't go search living in Chicago suburbs in the search line
It's
to
not
get.
like- It's not a Google search
Right.
engine kind of thing.
Mm-mm.
So there's a guy in the Baltimore, Maryland area. His name is Chris Colgan. His Instagram, he does something very similar to what Brandon and Kyle do, but he's very, very successful and has a ton of views and gets a lot of business from Instagram. But his is just like the Chris Colgan team. Whereas Brandon has his branded differently. Kyle's is moving to Kansas City or moving to KC. So it doesn't matter. I guess at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Don't stress out about it.
Okay.
Call it whatever.
I think you need to have clarity around who you and what you want to focus on before you post anything, but post something.
Yeah.
Do something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
Yeah, with the different platforms today, does your strategy change from YouTube to Instagram? Or do you have a different model for each platform?
Yeah, they're completely different, right? So YouTube values long form content, videos that are longer, whereas Instagram is pictures and like short bites of information between 30 to, 30 seconds to a minute. So yeah, so you have to create different types of content because of those different platforms. And you got to think that someone that's watching an 8-minute video on YouTube, they're very into something like researching it. That same person probably is not going to have that same behavior on Instagram because it's a little bit of a different audience of people that are using that.
But
And
you first started just with YouTube, right? So you focus on one thing
Yeah,
and
one
you
thing.
perfected that. And then are you doing Instagram as well now?
I am, but
But
that's not what I mean.
like if you're gonna do it, just pick one thing and learn that. And once you see success with that, then move on to something different. Otherwise,
Yeah.
it's.
Yeah. I was gonna say, if
It gets too overwhelming if you try to take on too many things, and I see that more often than not.
Yeah, and for those in the room that maybe missed Sarah's class a couple months ago, go back on our YouTube channel because it's a really good, she goes through all of the different ones, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff when you did your class here and talked about the question you were asking in a lot more detail. So, all right, we're over. So any other quick questions? I'll have local flavor come in.
What about hashtags? What is the ideal amount of hashtags we should be using?
I've heard people, Instagram experts say like around 4 to 6. They're not as important anymore, but it's still worthwhile putting there, but.
Yeah, just, I've been reading that it's not as important as it used to be, but okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for being here.